Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Create a Life You Love, the podcast, where we dive deep into personal transformation and healing. I'm your host, Jeremy, and on today's episode, I'm thrilled to be joined by Meg Pearson. She's an inspiring individual who has navigated very profound life changes. She was once living in a fast paced life as a television director in Toronto, grappling with addiction. Meg's life took a very transformative turn when she decided to move to Costa Rica. There, she embraced the healing arts as a yoga teacher and a raw vegan chef. She also discovered the power of plant-based diets and the healing properties of plant medicines like ayahuasca. A crucial component of her healing was also her exploration of breathwork, which she now utilizes both personally and professionally to foster deep emotional, physical healing. So, in today's episode, we will explore Meg's journey of self-discovery, how she overcome her struggles with addiction, and the pivotal role holistic practices played in her wellness. So join us for a compelling discussion about turning life's adversities into stepping stones for personal growth and enlightenment. Now, let's dive into my conversation with Meg.
So Costa Rica was almost a decade of my life. I moved down officially in October of 2013 down there to pursue a new path. I was a television director in Toronto for a decade prior to that and lived a very different lifestyle. I was very sick with addictions and many different things and decided to become a yoga teacher and a raw food chef. And that's what brought me to Costa Rica. And, so it was a big change. It was when my father passed in 2010 that really had, well, 2011, sorry, that really had me reconsidering my path. And so when I was down there in Costa Rica, I moved down there to lead yoga retreats. So I started with that. I was teaching culinary classes and doing yoga classes twice a day with people from all over the world at a boutique hotel. And I ended up falling into a role there where I ended up managing the whole place and doing the admin, and it became a big learning opportunity for me. And the food scope, the food side of things I was very passionate about it. I was doing raw vegan plant-based food, which not a lot of people were doing down there in Costa Rica at the time. And I got into it because I was working to heal my relationship with food, my relationship with my body after having suffered with an eating disorder for close to 20 years. And discovering plant-based food allowed me to actually start to enjoy food again and not be judging myself for eating and all of that. So it was a beautiful experience for me to be able to offer my wisdom and what I had learned through eating this kind of food to the world. So I did that for a long time, and it became, it got to the point where people were asking me to not just teach them how to make raw food, but to cater events. So I ended up starting a catering company.
While you were still managing this hotel.
Yeah. So I was there for a couple of years, and it got to be too much to try to do it all. So I ended up leaving that hotel and created my own catering business. Around the same time, I met my ex-husband, who was a Costa Rican man who was also in the food industry. He was a chef. And so he and I started doing this catering company together, and we were getting gigs all over. We were in Nosara, which I know you're familiar with. That's where I was living at the time. And I was getting hired to cater retreats all over Costa Rica and started getting flown up to Canada in the US to cater events. Anything from 8-person retreats to 150-person cancer retreats. So I was doing
All plant-based
yeah,
style of
yeah,
food. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
mostly all plant-based style food. And that was really, really cool. This is when Rhythmia was just starting out. So back in 2016, this little place called Rhythmia was starting, and I kept hearing about it from other people in the Nosara yoga community and consciousness community. So I reached out to the owner there. I hit it off with him, and they hired me in June of 2016 to create their menus. And Rhythmia is a plant medicine ayahuasca retreat center primarily. Also offers breathwork and many other healing modalities. And so I started working with them and then dove deep with plant medicine and became kind of a steward for plant-based cuisine there, and changed my entire life through healing with the medicine. Started drinking the medicine in 2016, and then started teaching integration and doing anything and everything that the medicine wanted me to do. And that's what I did for the last 7 years of living in Costa Rica. So
Oh,
that's
amazing.
That's what that was all about.
Yeah. And it's interesting to me because like as I continue having these conversations with people, these things keep coming up, like plant medicine for one, rhythmia for another. I'm actually surprised how many people have been there that I didn't even realize were there. And it sounds like obviously that was a big part of your journey. But let's if you don't mind, like take a step back and like how integrate like how important was the whole kind of plant medicine experience in your own personal journey? Because I know you've done many things in your life and you just kind of described some of them, but at what point did you realize that that healing was so important for you to kind of move forward?
Well, becoming a yoga teacher and becoming a raw food, plant-based chef was very healing for me when it came to my relationship with my body, as I mentioned.
Right,
I was also an alcoholic, fully functional alcoholic from my teens until I was 37.
right.
And
Oh,
and yeah, and it was, for the first almost 2 years that I worked at Rhythmia, which is was originally kind of an addiction center to a certain degree. I was still fully functional in my alcoholism, and I was actually, don't tell them, don't tell Rhythmia, but I was sneaking alcohol into my room there when I would go there to work
oh
for
my
a week.
God, because it's a no-no, right? Like you're
It's
not
a
allowed
huge
to.
no-no. It's a huge no-no. But I would go there because I was running my catering company while I was originally, like when I first started working for Rhythmia. And so Rhythmia would have me come for a week. I would teach recipes to the staff, to the kitchens team. I would create menus. And so I'd be there for a week at a time. And then I'd go back to Nosara and continue catering. And so I was still drinking while I was there. And it wasn't until I started really sitting with Mother Ayahuasca that I started to see that I was ready to start to not just release that addiction to alcohol, but more importantly, start solving the wounds, healing the wounds, the reasons why I drank. For me, the alcohol was a symptom. It was a symptom of my pain and my trauma. It was my numbing. It was the way that I um, kept myself disconnected from all of the pain that I was holding in my heart. And so plant medicine really started to illuminate that for me. So about a year and a half, 2 years after starting to sit with the medicine and doing some surface level healing with her is when I really realized I wanted to set the intention to become sober. And it was actually through several ayahuasca ceremonies that brought me up to the point of being ready to release the addiction, and then an iboga ceremony that brought me my sobriety. And that was October 28th of 2017 was a ceremony that I did with iboga, and which is another plant medicine from Africa. It's the bark of a bush, and I've been sober ever since, haven't touched alcohol.
Oh,
So
congratulations. That's
yeah,
amazing.
thank you.
Like in the past, I'm assuming that you tried to become sober along the way. You were obviously from a young teen, like you said, to your adulthood, you were struggling with alcoholism. Did you try becoming sober along the way?
Well, mostly in my 20s because I was working in the industry, the television industry, drinking was normal. So it kind of went hand in hand. Like red carpets, you did drugs, you drank alcohol, that was kind of the
Oh, I
thing.
see. Yeah.
Um, but deep down I knew that I had a problem, and so I would attempt to do like sober January. I could never go 30 days without alcohol. I could barely go a couple of days. And so I knew that there was a problem. Like it wasn't something that I had choice over. And so there were a few times in my 20s, more so later on in my 20s when I was really getting deeper into the yoga that I attempted it. I used therapy. I read the Alan Carr Easy Way to Quit Drinking because that's how I quit smoking, which was a book. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Alan Carr's Easy Way to. It started with, I think, Alan Carr's Easy Way to Quit Smoking, which is how I quit smoking at 26. You read a book, you quit. And there was an alcohol book. There's a way to lose weight book. Um,
Did it worked on the smoking side?
it worked on the smoking. Literally, I closed the back cover of the book and I haven't touched cigarettes since.
That's
Super
cool.
crazy.
So the alcohol though was probably a lot deeper integrated into you and your core wounds and a lot of things that you've been through. And it sounds like too the plant medicine really allowed you to kind of dive deep inward, right? To face those kind of wounds that you needed to face.
Yeah, I feel like Mother Ayahuasca really shone light on the pain so that I could begin to face it and become friends with it and learn from it. And the iboga, the journey I had with iboga, the initial journey was really about healing the physical addiction because I did have a physical addiction to alcohol. I would, get shaky by 5 p.m. if I didn't have a drink. And my first journey with iboga was 30 hours of pure hell, and it was a full physical detox. I sweat, puked, vomited like for 30 hours, but it was just physical. I could feel the medicine just pulling the physical addiction out of me. And I think that's, that combination is what I needed. I needed to heal the wounds with the ayahuasca, and I needed the physical addiction, extracted from me. And that's what the iboga did. So I'm
Do you
grateful
think,
for both of those medicines.
yeah, do you think you could have got there without working with the plant medicine?
I don't know if I would ever have seen the necessity without the plant medicine, because it had become such an ingrained part of who I thought I was. My identity had become so attached to my alcohol that, I remember before getting sober thinking, why would anyone go to a beach holiday like Cuba and not drink? Why would anyone go to Italy and not drink? Like,
Yeah.
alcohol and life was like, they were so enmeshed for me. Um, and I mean, even where I am now, I've moved back to small town Ontario where alcohol is a normal thing. Like, I got looked at funny this past weekend at a wedding when I didn't want to have a champagne for the toast. I was like, no, I'm good with my bottle of water. Like, what? What's wrong with you? Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't know if the medicine hadn't really guided me to seeing that there was more to life without I was kind of seeing life through
So weird, right? Like,
yeah, like my eyes were very closed to what was possible because I was numbing my pain through my alcoholism. But unbeknownst to me, while doing that, I was also limiting my capacity to fully feel joy, to fully feel ecstasy, connection, all of that other greatness. And that's what the medicine really showed me. She wasn't, Mother Ayahuasca didn't really show me the pain that I caused through my alcoholism. She showed me, like, look what you're missing out of because of your alcoholism.
okay. So when you came out of it then, and as they say, the integration part is probably more important, if any, than the actual journey itself, right? So what did that look like for after you've had these awakening, experiences? Obviously you had to put in the work after. So what did that look like for you? How did you continue the journey?
Yeah. So probably the toughest integration for me was learning how to live life without the booze.
Even after like the ayahuasca, Mother Ayahuasca showing you all this stuff, I'm sure when you
Yeah.
came out of it, there was still that call or that, your ego, whatever you want to call it, like wanting to go back to the booze and that old way of being.
Well, interestingly, it wasn't necessarily like that. I got sober on October 28th, and 3 days later was Nosara, Costa Rica's infamous Halloween party at El Chivo, which is like this big it used to be this big Mexican restaurant. And every Halloween they did this big drunken party. And I showed up there and drank club soda with lime, and I had no desire to drink. And that's what, like, I was like, whoa, this is insane. And then I got to like really see all the drunkenness, and I'm like, oh my God, that's
Yeah.
that's what the world I was in for so long. Um, the really tough thing for me was having to figure out what to do with my time, because I didn't realize how much time I had wasted to my addiction. My life, all of my 20s and up till I was 37 in my 30s, my life consisted of pouring myself fully and completely into my career and then my addiction. So I would work all day, be super passionate about my food and what I was offering the world, and then I would go home and just drink myself to blackout drunk. That was my life. So every evening I would get home from work, open a bottle of or two of wine, have a couple of, martinis, and once the alcohol was gone for the day, I would pass out. And that was my life. So when I got sober, I remember going home the first day from work at Rhythmia and sitting on my sofa, and I was like,
What do you do now?
6 hours till bedtime. Do I have any hobbies? I don't know.
Really, that's an amazing story and an amazing example of like a transformation, right? Like going from like this one way of life where, you're succeeding in your career and doing all these amazing things, but inside you were kind of busted up, you're broken, and you're going home and just kind of like fueling that. And then you
Yeah.
go through this amazing experience, and now you're kind of transformed into this other side. So at one point, you must have had to have gone and faced those demons, right? And I'm guessing it's through the plant medicine and stuff like that. But did you have to like go back and really work on yourself and face those core wounds and understand where all that pain was coming from, or was it just kind of like work with the medicine, it healed me, boom, I'm good? Or was there more work involved? Like,
Well, for me, there's always more work.
right, right, for
I
sure.
felt getting sober really just kind of opened me up to seeing the many, many, many layers. I had long told myself that all of my issues had stemmed from childhood molestation because I was molested as a child. And and the medicine started to really reveal to me the all of the nuanced ways that small occurrences, tiny, seemingly somewhat harmless experiences that I had as a child had just kind of compounded on each other, and how little girl, like little version of me, had created stories around, I had attached the same pain from like my molestation to a million different circumstances that were really in real life in the moment not harmless, but they felt harmful to me. And the medicine had to really start showing me that, so I could peel back the layers and unravel all of the trauma, but also the perceived trauma that I didn't know had been holding me back for a long time. And also to see how it wasn't just the molestation, that there was so many other um, events, aspects of my upbringing, aspects of, stuff from society.
Right.
And so it was 7+ years, and I'll tell you, I drank medicine 2 nights before I left Canada in the end of April of this year.
Yeah,
And
I was there.
you were
That's
there, yes,
your
yes.
way. Yes, that's my way.
And there was still more, right? I'm like, oh
Always going
wow,
to be.
there's still more. Like, I'm gonna have to go back to that again at some point. Um, but I haven't sat with the medicine now since the end of April. We are now in, time of recording in July. And this has been a really big part of the journey, has been this integration, because I haven't had a break like this from the medicine, aside from my 2 pregnancies that I've had, because that's been one of the 2 other greatest gifts of my work with the medicine, have been me being able to have later in life pregnancies after being told that I would never be able to have children. And now I have.
I remember you sharing those stories. They were so touching. And then I remember you walking down the aisle, and then your little girl kind of walking down, throwing the flowers. And this is like, I don't know, what was it, 6, 7 in the morning, after everyone just came out of the ceremony and we're all just kind of
Yeah.
still on the medicine. Honestly, it was such a beautiful moment, I think, for everybody.
Yeah, and what you're speaking about is the ceremonial wedding. Like, I
Right.
had my 2 children over the last 4 years, and then like the week before I left Costa Rica, we got married. My partner, my now husband, and I got married at the end of a yahe ceremony. So yeah, we had
Right.
been up all night throwing up and pooping, and then at 6:37 in the morning, we got on our wedding dresses and did a shamanic wedding, and my
Yeah.
babies were there. Yes.
Yeah, it was so cool. So cool to be part of that. But but talk more about the integration, what it's like been for you being back and taking this break.
Yeah, so there's obviously the culture shock. I've been living in the jungle for 10 years. So for me, coming back to this world, and how much it's changed, Ontario, Canada, it's changed a lot since 2020. So,
For sure. Right.
learning how to navigate this and not feel like I have to pick sides, because I feel like there's such a divide here with people and their views on how things were handled in 2020. And I've never been one to, I've always been what is it, Switzerland? They say I'm Switzerland on things. I
Right.
I have a lot of friends and family that have very polarizing views on the world right now. And so integrating back here, and staying true to myself and true to my wanting to only see through love, and seeing people's hurt and why people act the way they act harmfully, obviously, is because they're hurting or they're afraid. And so that's been a big part of it. Bringing my children here, who have never known really anything but life in Costa Rica.
Oh, that's an interesting aspect. Yeah.
That's something I totally didn't even think about, the integration process for my 4-year-old, especially, who, weeks into going for walks here in small town Ontario, she was pointing to things going, what is that? Like a fire hydrant. What is that? Like, it's just
Really? That's
like, oh my God. Yeah, we didn't have these in our little beach town. And, keeping shoes on her feet at restaurants and things. That's,
that's so cool though.
I
Just kind of
know.
like seeing this from her eyes or whatever. She's this, like, it's a whole new world of exploration, isn't it?
Yeah. So there's
Um,
that, which is fun and beautiful. And we moved back to Canada knowing that we had a lot of work ahead of us, because we moved back here, this family of 4, with my dog, who I adopted from the side of the road in Costa Rica 8
cool.
years ago.
Right.
So she's also integrating, but we moved in with my mom. And as we we knew we had to do a bit of renovation on a house that we bought sight unseen, and we've since found out that there was mold and asbestos, and we've had challenge after challenge. And obviously living with my mother, all of my old mother wound stuff has been coming up. And so there have been weeks that I have felt more challenged in the last 3 months than I ever felt even with the medicine, because it's just old stuff. Being in my hometown, this is the same town that I grew up in, where a lot of my pain happened. This is where I was molested. This is where I was bullied.
Oh,
This is
oh,
where, and I see people I went to high school with that I have trauma around the way that things played out back then, where it's, for me, it's this, it's not heavy anymore, but it's conscious for me, where I can probably guess that for them, they don't think twice about what happened in high school.
right.
But
They probably forgot about it or suppressed it or don't want to
yeah,
even acknowledge it because it'll probably bring up so much for them as well.
yeah. And I mean, the family of the boy who raped me essentially in high school is still in this area. And so there's a lot of that for me that, well, it's not a wound that is fresh in that I feel like I need to do a lot of work on it. It's just a wound that I have to be aware of and continue to nurture it, and send myself love, like my little girl inside, and be like, we're good, we're safe, like
Do
we
you
are
feel
so good.
like the journeys that you've been on in Costa Rica and the experience you've had there have almost kind of prepared you a little bit for coming back and getting you ready for it? Like versus if you just kind of came back without all that, maybe
Yeah.
you'd be even a person.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And it was a lot of the medicine, the messages that I received about moving back, a lot of it came from the medicine. In fact, there was a ceremony I did at the end of 2022, right around the time that my partner and I had made the decision that, yeah, we definitely want to move back to Canada. And a big reason why is when my son was born in Costa Rica, in 2022, my mom was there, and I had a home birth on the living room floor. And in the moment my son arrived and my mom was right there, it was like this full circle moment, like, yes, it's now my time to go back and be with my mom, like that. it's
Is that one of the main reasons for moving back to be closer to your mother?
Yeah, huge, 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 huge reason.
Okay.
And then the medicine also illuminated last year that, well, a lot of people have always said to me that I'm so brave and I'm so courageous. The medicine actually showed me that I was actually terrified. And I had this ancient fear that was driving so much of what I was doing in my life. And the only way to begin to heal that fear was to step fully into it. And doing this move from Costa Rica to Canada with zero certainty, zero financial security, zero knowing of what the future would hold, that was my test. And that's what I needed to do. And so that was November of 2021 where the medicine told me that. She's like, this is going to be the scariest fucking thing you're ever going to do. And if you don't do it, you're never going to move to the next level of your healing. So I was
You know
like,
what's
I'm all in.
interesting? I know what's interesting about that is for a lot of people, it's the other way around. It's like leaving their hometown. We'll use Canada as an example and going to a place like Costa Rica. For you, you found a home out there and you found an amazing life, and you obviously healed a lot of your Korun. So I can see how you'd be so connected to that place. And you probably, had a good community around you, had a family around you out there as well, right? And then to be able to just leave all that, take your family, move back, it's amazing actually, and how you're able to do that just to be closer to your mother. But it's probably right. The medicine's probably right. It's probably like a segue into this next chapter of your life. All the lessons and everything you learned out there, now you can bring it back into this next chapter.
Yeah, yeah, and I get it. Like I'm all, like I've the whole time I've been here, I've just been like, okay, I get it. And when stuff hasn't played out the way we expected it, or stuff, our car was so late. We bought a car, and they're like, it's going to be 6 months, and we're like, oh my God, I'm like this. And old me would have said, all of this stuff that's not working out, these are signs from the universe that we made the wrong decision to move here.
Yeah, but it's
But
not.
but
Yeah.
new me was saying, oh no, this is just the universe testing my faith, testing
Okay.
the fortitude of my soul to stay on this path and face this fear. And so that's, and it continues every few days.
That's a
If
beautiful way, though, a perspective of looking at it, though, and how it's changed your outlook on things. Because one of the things that keeps coming up, it came up for me coming back from Costa Rica and even talking to other people, is this whole notion of synchronicity. And it seems to come up in a lot of these conversations. But if you look at it from that aspect, how everything is in perfect synchronicity, even from not getting your car, having mold in your place, right? It's all in perfect sync for you to learn these lessons, right? So then you can take it into this next chapter. And
yeah,
even like if you look back on your life, do you feel like, and you can tell me how you feel about this, but even as you were a little kid, all the things that have happened to you and all the things that you went through have kind of like set you up for where you're at now and how, because I know you're coaching and I know you're trying to support and hold space for people. Like, do you think that it's almost been in perfect synchronicity for you to get to this point of your life?
100%. I am so grateful for everything I went through. Like, even being like my sexual trauma, all of it. I'm so grateful because if it hadn't been for any of that, I wouldn't have chosen this path. I wouldn't be able to be this better version of me. My daughter wouldn't have a mother as, grounded in truth and trust that she's perfect. Would I wish this on anyone else? Do I want my daughter to have to go through the same types of things? No, but if she does, I also know that that's going to be her path. And I do have a firm belief that our souls to a certain degree choose these lives. They choose what we go through. The medicine, I remember when my partner and my partner proposed to me also on ayahuasca in June of 2021, where I was wondering, him and I never get to drink medicine together because we've had my daughter for 4 years, but in June of 21, he was convincing me we needed to drink the medicine together. So one Tuesday night we went and drank the medicine. My friends were the medicine providers of the shamans of the evening, and he had set up this whole thing behind the scenes to propose to me at the end, and they were going to play a song, one of my favorite medicine songs. But the ceremony, my journey that whole night with the medicine was about my partner and the sacrifices that his soul had made in this life. And I got to see, because he's had a very traumatic life. He was born and raised Jehovah's Witness. He had a lot of suicide in his family in that religion. He had a lot of pain, and the medicine showed me like his soul chose a lot of this so that you guys would get together and meet and continue this healing together. Like the sacrifices that his soul chose the pain that he endured so that we could meet, so that we could do this work together, and so that we could heal. And I've looked at him completely different ever since then. I've just seen his soul in a different way. And it was just a reminder for me, like, yeah, we came here with things we were supposed to heal and learn and experience. And it's not always a smooth ride, but every experience that we have, no matter how painful it is, if we're choosing to do this thing called life consciously, we get to learn from it, we get to expand from it, we get to grow. And this is, my partner, and I, we don't have university degrees, but we fucking have some pretty gosh darn awesome diplomas in this thing called life, and so
And I feel like it's amazing how you can find gratitude in those experiences that you went through now. I'm sure it wasn't always like that. But the fact that you're able to look back on your life experiences and find, like, be grateful for them or find gratitude in them because of the lessons that you learned, that must be a huge shift for you. I mean, I can't even imagine what it would be like growing up, having those experiences. I'm sure at some point you're just suppressing them, you're keeping them within, you're going on with your life. Then you got to a certain point where you have to deal with that. So,
mhm.
like, what is the message that you have for people like who are maybe going through similar stuff, but they're kind of stuck and they haven't found plant medicine or they haven't found another modality that has helped them?
Yeah, I mean, I've recently rebranded my business to Rebel Soul Health, and because I
Okay, I've
feel
seen that. Yeah,
and you know because it's become so clear to me, especially coming back to Canada, that there are people, and a lot of people out there that they have pain, they know that they want to do healing, and I've had people reaching out to me all the time, like, I have this, and I have this ailment, and I have this pain and this trauma, and then they tell me what they think they need to do in order to heal, and it's exactly what some medical doctor has told them or some therapist has
example.
told them. you know
Jeez.
um People that I've had people reach out to me saying that they feel disconnected from their body. They can't stick to a diet. They have they're like lethargic in the morning. They're fighting with their spouse all the time. And so they want to do a meal plan and, have me to be an accountability coach for them to do yoga, whatever. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. And then we do breath work. Uh-huh. And all of
Right.
a sudden, what comes to the surface is like their beliefs that they are, holy shit, I didn't realize that growing up, I felt like I had to grow up too soon and I never got to be a child and da 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 da. And we start drawing lines from these old belief patterns from when they were in childhood that directly correlate to their inability to be disciplined about treating their body well, that they don't value their body as a temple, the reason why they can't stick to a quote unquote diet or eat healthy is because they don't feel worthy of it. And there's all of these layers from
Right.
an old childhood wound that directly reflects every aspect of their life that they're having trouble taking control of and or just improving and optimizing. And and they're so floored when they have these discoveries. They're like, how did you figure this out so quickly? And it's I'm like, well, I didn't figure it out, you figured it out with your breath.
Right.
And then I get the feedback from people all the time, like, this is not what any coach or doctor has told me that I need to do and to get better. I'm like, yeah. So we need to start flipping this whole fucking, sorry, I don't know if I'm supposed to swear on this or not.
That's okay. We've said so much that swearing is the least things that have come up. So yeah,
This
good.
is why it's called Rebel Soul Health, right?
Yeah,
Um,
no, we just keep going.
but I just think it's funny because the beliefs that I have about health and wellness and how much our emotional wounding impacts all aspects of our life. It's normal in our world, right? You understand that because you do the medicine, you understand that, but the vast majority of the world don't understand that. So I'm a rebel. I'm
Yeah,
a rebel.
especially with the breath work and stuff. Like I'm obviously part of this community. A lot of people are tapped into it. A lot of people are utilizing it and they see it. But you're right. It's like as soon as you step out of that community, it's like people are so like it's so foreign to them. It's like you want me to use my breath to do what? But
Yeah.
like as soon as you can get them in it and like try and experience the changes that you see instantly on people, it's so profound.
Yeah. And so, when people come to me thinking they know what they need in order to heal, and then I just help them reveal themselves to themselves. Like the breath work reveals you to you, and you can start to understand what needs, you get messages from your soul, from spirit, from God, whatever you want to call it. and
Right.
and that's rebellious, being, be, talking about the things that we talk about, you, me, Geo, all of these people. This is rebellious when it comes to the North American culture. We're still, and we have to remember, this tiny community in the
Right.
world that understands these alternative healing modalities. And ayahuasca plant medicine is its own beast. Breathwork is something that anyone and everyone can do, and it has the power to transform in such a short amount of time. And it's seen by a lot of people in the mainstream culture as too good to be true, or that it's impossible. Like the things that we can do with breath work, when we talk about the possibilities, people think that's not, there's no fucking way. We're just breathing, right?
You
And
have to experience though, and like I've been on both sides. So I've taken the elemental rhythm facilitator training. I facilitated now, and I've been a participant. And no matter what side I'm on, you can see the results on people. Like when people share after the experience, and maybe it's not everybody, but there's enough people that share what's happened to them, and the shares, it's like that's the proof right there. Like it's not like we're making this stuff up. It's like real life experiences that people are going through.
yeah, well, I mean, I did my first breathwork facilitator certification in 2016, I think it was, in Nosara.
Okay.
and
Who did you
and
do it with?
it was doing it with Ashley Ludman of Breakthrough Breathwork. So she's been
Okay.
in the breathwork game for years and years and years. She still does facilitator trainings in Nosara. It's a very um, it was a very shamanic based type of practice. She worked a lot with feminine archetypes and all of that with the work, a lot of hands on work. And So I did a couple of levels of that with her, went on to work with transformational breath for a while because that's what we were doing at Rhythmia. And then
Right.
I've done more training with Samantha Skelly of Pause Breathwork, who I know Giovanni knows.
I know her. Well, I know her. I know Paul's very well. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was and we did. There's a lot of trauma study with that program. So we did a lot. We had a trauma therapist in teaching us a lot about the trauma and how to work with, trauma as it comes up in the breather's body. And it's been really, and I'm actually been talking with Gio about hopping in on one of his trainings for fun because why not, right? The
Yeah,
more
it's
tools
good.
we have in our breathwork tool belt, the better we can serve, right?
Right. I totally agree with that. I'm very interested in the trauma side of stuff because like sometimes things do come up for people. And like even if you're just trained as like a breathwork facilitator, you may not be trained to handle some of the things that come up for people, especially when you're facilitating for a group, things
Yep.
come up. And if you're not prepared for it, like you have to figure out a way at least to kind of guide them in the right direction. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's not easy to kind of help people with trauma.
Yeah, and that was something that became really important to me because at Rhythmia, I was actually working in the ayahuasca ceremonies since 2019. After the birth of my daughter, I started assisting in the medicine ceremonies weekly. When I wasn't pregnant, I was in there weekly helping in ceremonies, and it became really important to me to learn as much as I could to help support people because when you're drinking plant medicine, the depth of that trauma response is times 1,000 sometimes. So I wanted to learn like what are the best, how do I work with people? How do I approach someone that's in a trauma response? How do I,
Exactly. I think yes.
and so it really became clear to me when I started doing breath work because I incorporate a lot of my plant medicine tools and practices when I lead in-person breathwork sessions as well. Things that I have been gifted from the shamans and the taitas that I've studied with over the years, I use with breathwork as well. And I find that that same response can come up sometimes. So learning from a trauma specialist for me was super important because I'm like, I wanna know like
Right. No,
what's good, what's bad, what's wrong, what's right. How can I set the scene to make sure that
especially
people are
if you're doing one-on-one coaching as well, like and you're going more personal, right? And you're bringing up those things. Yeah, you have to be prepared. I know Gio has, well, in the elemental rhythm space, he has the level 2 coaching, which focuses more on the trauma and
mm,
more on the core wounds and more on the stuff that's suppressed within you and stuff. So,
beautiful.
yeah, it is very important, I think, as a facilitator, to be prepared for that.
Yeah. I mean, and even just to know that's a possibility. And I think that
Right.
that's
Fair enough.
there's no one, there's no governing body over breath work yet, right? And so there's a lot of people out there teaching breath work and just like saying, okay, you're certified to go off and teach, but not giving you any sort of tools about how to navigate, should a traumatic experience come up for someone, and
Right.
even just knowing that that's something to expect is important. Someone could go back into like childhood and what do you do? Well, first things first, have them stop doing the breathing pattern, right? Just basics,
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, just changing your breathing, like even for myself, since coming back, like I've really tapped into breath work, I think even more as a tool in my toolbox, right? So like there's been days where I wake up and for whatever reason, like I'm just, like you said, feeling off, right? Just not feeling myself, but utilizing the breath work and using a certain style of breathing can change my state, right?
Mhm.
And then following it up with a bit of a meditation and then some movement, that's my go-to, right? And then sometimes I'll jump in my ice bath as well. But even without the
Yeah.
ice bath is a hack. Like I can jump in the ice bath, boom, you're gonna get the dopamine, you're gonna feel it. But it's different though. The breath work allows me to really get out of my head, get into my body and release. Because a lot of times what I'm finding, what happens to me is like I'll be rolling in a good flow state, or I'll be doing well for a bunch of days or whatever. Then boom, something will hit me, I get triggered, I go back to that old self. But the
Mm.
breath work allows me to release it really kind of quickly. So I'm
Yeah.
not stuck in that state for too long. I'm able to continue kind of my journey, but it's not perfect, right? But you got to
No.
be willing to step up. And that's what I feel like you did in your life. You got to be able to step up and face that stuff head on and be willing to put in the work to truly heal. And like what I'm seeing in like my own community is that people don't want to put in that work. They don't want to face that stuff. They'd rather just like, oh no, I'm good, continue. But no, we can see that you're obviously not good. And
Mhm.
like, so with that being said, like, what are you doing now to kind of help? Like you talked about your coaching practice, Rebel.
Rebel Soul
Yeah,
Health.
yeah, so talk about that, and how are you supporting people, like, and how can people like reach out to you if they want to work with you?
Well, probably the biggest thing that I've been doing for the last, gosh, since the beginning of, well, but this year, it was something that I manifested in a breathwork session in 2022. But I've created something called the Breath Alchemy Circle, and this is a virtual breath community that runs in 3-month containers. It's for women, and I created it as such because I wanted this to be a really safe space for women to dive deep with the breath. So it is, a beautiful community. I'm in the mid of my summer cohort. I did an April spring cohort. Now I'm in my June to September summer cohort. And it's a container where we breathe. We do live group breath work once a week. We do a monthly workshop on different themes. And then we also have a private community using an off social media app where we are supporting each other. And I really wanted this program to be a circle. So I've really made it clear to the ladies that are involved that it's not just me in the middle of a circle and they're all around me. They're all in this together, working together and healing together. And I've created a curriculum that we work through. Every breath session has a different focus. This past week, we did probably one of the deepest breath sessions for the ladies so far, which was on healing the sister wound, which is something that I don't think women even realize is so raw in them until they start doing the work on it. So we might be diving into that again in future sessions, but each week we have a different theme. We're breathing to call something in, whether it's trust, acceptance, or we're breathing to release something or to heal something. And this program is 3 months. As I mentioned, my next one begins in September.
Right.
And this is something that I plan to offer at least twice a year, probably 3 times a year moving forward. And it's probably been one of the most impactful programs that I've ever offered myself for both my clients and me. The feedback I've been getting that it's just been, transformative for
Yeah,
the people involved. And I'm super passionate about it. So
yeah, I can
that's,
tell. Kind of lighting up just talking about it. What is like a session, if you don't mind opening up a little bit about it, but what does a session look like? Are you guiding them through like, is an hour-long breath work? What do
yeah.
you do after? Like, what does it look like?
Yeah, so the weekly breath sessions, they're really they're standalone breath sessions. They're about 75 minutes in total. We do a quick check-in at the beginning, just seeing where all the ladies are at. I currently have 14 women in the group. And then I talk about the theme a little bit for a few minutes, just this is what we're focusing on. And then I get them right into a meditation. We drop in, we become present, we let go of the day, and then we breathe. And I use five.
Sorry, are you guiding them through it, or is it like a
Yep, I guide them live. I guide them through the breath
right?
work
Okay,
live. I
okay,
use
cool.
5 different breath patterns that I choreograph different breath patterns with playlists that I've created, and then we come out of it and we share, we talk about it, and then once a month we do that every week. And this is the part that the women look forward to the most. They're like, oh, I need to breathe. Let's just no check in. Let's just breathe, right? Um, and then we do a monthly workshop as well that has we do a lot of partner work. We do a lot of dyads where we work with the parts of us, the inner child. We share, we check in, and then I do a lot of coaching and like educating, so workshopping information. Um,
Amazing.
yeah, and it's been so fun. And then I'm also doing retreats as well. So I'm
In
actually
Ontario or back in Costa Rica?
I am planning a one north of Toronto, a full day or half day retreat north of Toronto in mid-August. I'm just working on that right now. I've just secured the venue, and there's going to
This
be
sorry, is this women only again, or
no, this is going to be for everyone, and it's going to be some yoga, some breath work, maybe some ice baths, the whole thing, the whole
I love
experience.
it. Keep me posted. Maybe I
I
can drive down and check it out.
I would love that. I mean,
Yeah,
it's going to be near Tottenham.
not sure where that is.
Yeah, it's north of Toronto, and then I do have a retreat also in Costa Rica, week of February 17th as well, where it's called the Rebel Soul Medicine Retreat, and it's a little bit of everything for seasoned dimension travelers, for integration, and people that are new to this world, and just want to try out all of these different healing modalities in person. So that retreat is happening in Costa Rica, February 17th to 24th. So I'm excited about that
You're
as
rolling, man. Like your energy is like contagious almost, like you're glowing. And you can tell that like you've been through a long life of a lot of different types of experiences and you've lived different lives, but it's like I don't know, like just after you sharing your story, it feels like it all kind of funneled you back to where you're supposed to be, and it's just like helping people and supporting them.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. I feel like this is an untapped territory where I'm at in Ontario, and so I'm speaking at a conference this coming weekend, or not speaking.
Cool.
I have a table at a conference this week. I'm flying to Vancouver in February to speak at a wellness conference, and
Amazing. What
just
things are
start.
happening?
Yeah, lots is happening, so I'm excited. I'm also doing some food stuff still too. I've got a magazine gig lined up. I'm writing for a magazine. I've got my own streaming television show that is going to be starting in partnership with an online magazine, and lots happening. So I just don't know where I'm going to find the time for it all, but I'm excited.
Yeah, you'll figure it out. So one thing you haven't mentioned is like, so how can people check you out, like online,
Yeah.
website, Instagram, that kind of stuff?
So I'm mostly active on Instagram at Coach Meg Pearson, real simple, Pearson like the international airport here in Canada, at Coach Meg Pearson.
Fair enough.
And there you'll get links to my website. My website's really easy, meganpearson.ca.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, on my website, I've got a really basic free 5 day breathwork challenge that people can sign up for, and that gets you onto the newsletter. Will keep you updated with all of my retreats and events and stuff like that. But yeah, Coach Meg Pearson on Instagram. And I also have a podcast, Rebel Soul Health Radio, which people
Oh,
can
very
also
cool.
find. There's an Instagram page for that as well, Rebel Soul Health Radio, which is my I've been doing my podcast since 2021, and Rebel Soul Health Radio, it's your hub for all things holistic healing, conscious living with a no
Yeah.
bullshit approach, right? It's about mixing the woo with the do.
A great way of putting it. And I think that's well needed because like for people that are looking to transition into some of this stuff, having a podcast that speaks to it with kind of like no bullshit kind of approach, I think it's going to be really helpful for people. So I'll
and
check it out too. I didn't realize you had a podcast as well.
Yeah, and I've had it. It's kind of it's shifted. My very first episodes were about everything from human design and Akashic records, a lot of interviews, and then through my pregnancy, my business ebbs and flows with my life seasons. So there's a whole chunk of podcast episodes that are about pregnancy and babies and all of that, and now I'm back doing it again. And now my episodes that I on my new the new ones, since I've rebranded as Rebel Soul Health Radio, their episodes are really no longer than 15 minutes each. So they're nice and short. They're bite size.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I was thinking about that as well when I was creating this. How long do I want these episodes to be? And it's hard to put a timestamp on, especially when you're kind of speaking to somebody else, right? Because
Interviews are hard to contain in time.
like we're coming up to like I think about the hour mark now, and that's kind of been like the norm. And I think it's a good amount of content because like the purpose of doing all this for me and sharing these stories, it wasn't really about me having a place to talk. It was more about getting other people to come on and share their stories. And like your story is another amazing one. It's another example of someone who had all this trauma and had all this stuff within them. They were leading this life, but they weren't fulfilled or they weren't feeling good about themselves, and they needed to put in that work. And as soon as they put in that work and stepped up for themselves, all this amazing magical stuff happened. And those are the stories that I just kind of wanted to share. So I thank you so much for coming on, being open, being vulnerable, and sharing everything that has been going on with you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's my absolute pleasure. I love sharing, and I love
Mhm.
connecting with like-minded souls like you that are, part of this mission to just make the world a more loving and peaceful place. So thank you for doing this.
Amazing. So I'll put all your links and ways that people can contact you in the description. And
Awesome.
again, thank you so much. And yeah, guys, we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.